Hello and welcome to the City of Peoria Planning and Zoning Commission. The Planning and Zoning Commission is composed of volunteer citizens appointed by the City Council. The Commission is the designated hearing body for a range of land use applications, including general plan amendments, rezones, conditional use permits, and amendments to the zoning code. Upon recommendation by the Commission, general plan amendments, rezones, and zoning code amendments proceed forward to the Peoria City Council for final action. For conditional use permits, the Commission will make a final decision subject to appeal. All hearings are conducted in accordance with the rules for procedure requirements to allow an impartial and efficient hearing, and all Commission meetings are open to the public under the Arizona Open Meeting Law. Each case will be called in the order in which it appears on the agenda unless otherwise announced during the meeting. Once called, City staff will give a presentation of the case, followed by a presentation from the applicant if they so desire. After the applicant's presentation, members of the public who have submitted a speaker's request form will be called to speak by the Commission Chair. The applicant may be called to provide additional information, clarification, or a rebuttal. The Commission will discuss the case, may ask additional questions, and take action. Any member of the public wishing to speak must complete a speaker's request form and hand it to the planning assistant at the end of the dais. When speaking, please limit your comments to a maximum of 3 minutes and try not to repeat statements already made by others. We welcome your comments, and as fellow citizens of Peoria, we thank you in advance for your participation.
Welcome, everyone. I would like to call to order the May 7th, 2026 Planning and Zoning Commission. The time is now 6:02. Clerk, please call the roll.
Madam Chair Villasenor.
Present.
Vice Chair Emilio Gaynor. Commissioner Cottrell.
Present.
Commissioner Agia. Commissioner Fighter.
Present.
Commissioner Hutchinson. Commissioner Waitman-Powell.
Present.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Moving on. Next is the final call for speaker request forms. If you would like to address the commission tonight, please fill out a speaker form. They are available right on the front there at the podium. Next is the consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered routine in nature and will be enacted in one motion. Do I have any questions or comments from the commission on the consent agenda? No comments? Can I hear a motion?
I move that we approve the consent agenda items 1C, 2C, and 3C as presented.
I second, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Cottrell made a motion. It was seconded by Commissioner Waitman-Powell. Commissioners, please vote.
The minutes have passed.
Thank you. For those of you who may not know, this has been recently remodeled to this beautiful setting. Personally, I really enjoy it. But it's new AV and new everything, so forgive us if we have a little bit of glitches. We are working through it. Thank you for your patience. We'll now proceed with the regular agenda. We will start with item 4R, the conditional use permit for the wireless facility.
Good evening, Chair, members of the Commission. Cody Gleason, Planning Manager with the City of Peoria here. I am going to do a little bit of a lead off this evening in regards to item 4R. This is for a wireless communication facility. We recently had a study session in regards to wireless communication facilities and kind of the legal framework for that as it relates to federal, state statutes, as well as the Federal Communication Commission rulings and regulations as well. So I just wanted to recap a little bit of those, and then I'll actually turn it over to Eric Cook who will go through the conditional use permit. So just to step back a little bit and cover what we had talked about in that study session, there's a multitude of regulations that apply to wireless facilities. And as the years have progressed, more and more of those regulations and rulings have come out as preemptive towards local jurisdictions and their capabilities as it relates to providing regulations for wireless facilities. So a lot of those elements that you'll see and hear as concerns of wireless facilities are actually preemptions that the FCC has declared that local jurisdictions cannot rule based on those items. So some of those items are things like health concerns, RF emissions or radio frequency emissions that result from the use of the towers. The FCC has ruled that basically local jurisdictions cannot make a ruling based on concerns or thoughts of health as it relates to those RF emissions. Chair, Commissioner Fider, it looked like you might have a question.
Sorry, so we are not allowed to use health concerns in our evaluation of this case?
Chair,
Per federal law?
Chair, Commissioner Fider, that's correct. There have been several FCC declaratory rulings that have identified that that is a prohibited evaluation criteria. If it's found that we do rule on something that's on this list of prohibited evaluation factors, then we're subject to what's referred to as expedited judicial review, meaning they have the ability to sue us in extra quick fashion and get a very quick ruling on that by a judge panel that typically ends up siding with the vendor. So I hope that addresses your
No,
question.
it does. I'm looking at your slide, and
Sure.
I know, then I apologize for interrupting, but a lot of these concerns doesn't sound like we have the authority to. This seems like federal rules forcing us to ignore some of the neighbors' concerns here.
Chair, Commissioner Fider, that is correct. Those federal regulations seek to really narrow our scope. Normally in a typical conditional use permit, we're trying to evaluate, what are the items that might mitigate concerns of the neighborhood. In this case, the federal regulations and the FCC rulings have really narrowed our scope to, is it something that is allowed within our zoning ordinance? If so, what are the applicable objective factors that we can evaluate? So those are things like setbacks, those are things like height, those are things like concealment. So if it meets those factors, we have to strictly rule based on whether or not it meets those.
I have a question. No, please, Commissioner Waitman-Powell.
No, thank you, Madam Chair, and then, yes, Mr. Gleason. So I think that you kind of answered my question there. You explained what happens, if we do touch on these topics because of federal regulations. And I think for me, I'm just kind of questioning myself, maybe we need to get a little bit more educated on those federal regulations, and it may be because health concerns is not within our jurisdiction. We do planning and zoning, and so that may simplify it, that we're not health experts, and so we should only touch on maybe what the ordinance permits and what that all entails, and that makes sense. But I do think it's a valid concern, and I don't want to speak for anybody, but I think that health concerns is something that really comes up when these come before planning and zoning cases. And so for me, when it comes to educating, right, and actually having the facts, and I think we might hear it today here as well, like, is there someone we could bring in to address those health concerns if we cannot address those? Just for educational purposes, to debunk myths, what is truth, what is fact, what is not, because I think we are going to hear some health concerns today. Thank you.
Certainly. Chair, Commissioner Waitman-Powell, So we can certainly do additional study sessions for information, but if we were to go down the path of evaluating what those health concerns might be, or factoring those into our decision process and evaluating those further, I think that is leading us down that path of that expedited judicial review. So I just want to caution the commission that any evaluation along those lines could lead us down that path.
Okay, thank you. And I don't want to take us down that rabbit hole, but, just trying to have understanding here and concerns that are going to be very real to community. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Regarding health concerns, is it specific to RF emissions?
That's correct. So, if there is something as it relates to those RF emissions, now if there are safety concerns with an unsecure site, that could certainly be a different matter. That is something that we regularly evaluate as a part of our process.
Of course. But I just want to ask, they clarified the FCC, it relates to the RF emissions only. That's the only health concern.
Chair,
Call out?
unless there is another concern that, the commission might have as it relates to health, we could evaluate that further. If it's not related to RF emissions, I would want to get a better sense of what that health concern is.
Yeah, I'm just curious of the language. And again, this is for my own edification and understanding, but aesthetics cannot be overly burdensome. That sounds so subjective. So how does the city work with aesthetics? Like, what you like might not be what you like, or,
Certainly.
curious.
Chair, I think that's intentionally broad on the FCC's part, because they want you to simply identify, do you have criteria for what is typically referred to as a stealth design? If so, you need to simply apply that stealth criteria and move on. So for instance, other jurisdictions have a requirement, it has to be a monopalm, meaning concealed as a palm tree, and it has to have 82 fronds. Somehow, there's a magic number of fronds that's going to make it look more realistic. Ultimately, we're looking for, we don't have that finite criteria, but because we want to allow something that's going to hopefully fit in better with the community, we want to provide for site-specific stealth opportunities. All right.
Commissioner Waitman-Powell.
And thank you. This would be my last question. And thank you for that, Mr. Gleason. If I remember right, and just point of clarification from our study session, there was not something that touched on aesthetics, but we did see different type of designs that had to do with preserving really the neighborhood character, which, a lot of concerns, at least what we heard was, how it looks in the neighborhood. And I did see some very nice designs that were almost not noticeable, right? As crazy as that sounds. And so just to clarify, what you're saying is that we don't have no control over how it gets concealed, what that aesthetically looks like, because I remember they did have different type of designs, and so I'm just trying to get some understanding between that. There were different designs, but we cannot touch on aesthetics. So maybe it's the wording. I think that's what I'm getting confused on, so thank you.
Sure.
You can elaborate.
Chair, Commissioner Waitman-Powell, so we can evaluate aesthetics for appropriateness of that intended stealth design. So if it is, for instance, the monopalm, we need to evaluate whether or not it in fact looks akin to a palm tree. Obviously, there's going to be factors that make it not look like a palm tree in certain respects, but to the extent possible, we should be coordinating with the vendor so that they're fashioning it in a way that it ultimately looks as close as possible to a palm tree. Hopefully that helps.
No, that does help.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Gleason. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely. So, Chair, members of the commission, On the slide, as we've been discussing, there are a couple of other factors that really we have to evaluate this application absent of inclusion of those elements. And those include things like we've talked about with the health concerns as it relates to RF emissions. That includes things like aesthetics, but it also includes property values. And one of the things that the FCC and the rulings from those cases has identified is really they're telling jurisdictions you can't definitively say that a diminution of property value is resulting from this cell tower placement in this location. I think property value is certainly something held close to citizens. Everyone pays a lot for their house, whether they're buying or renting. That's an incredible expense. But ultimately, our scope, again, as it relates to these wireless facilities, is narrowed that we cannot evaluate that as a part of our review for this. And then ultimately, typically when the commission sees conditional use permits, we are looking at conditions of approval, again, in order to mitigate any concerns. In this case, we have to be very narrow in those conditions that we attribute to this case so that we are not running afoul of one of these prohibitions or the other regulations within the federal statutes as well as the FCC orders. We kind of already touched on this, but just to elaborate a little bit more, when we are evaluating a wireless facility, there's often a perception that there may be sufficient service within an area, and therefore the tower or facility is no longer needed. And so that is one of the items that we often hear. In this case, if we are evaluating based on our perceived capability of the wireless signal in that area, that would act as effective prohibition of the facility. And that's one of those items that would take us straight to that expedited judicial review. Along with that are the considerations of things that we talked about, those property values, aesthetics, and really opinions rather than matters of fact as it relates to the zoning ordinance and the review of those specific criteria within the ordinance. Additionally, the FCC and the federal statutes thought it prudent to add shot clocks to the review process for wireless facilities, meaning from start to finish, and that's inclusive of a planning process all the way through to building permit approval. There is a shot clock on this application, and that is from time of accepted application of this conditional use permit until that permit approval. In a new site like this, that's 150 days. So while it's in our hands, we have 150 days to do everything we need to get it out the door, or again, they have the ability to take us to that expedited judicial review. And then the other element is equal treatment. Some folks may prefer a certain provider over another, and or they may feel that there is sufficient provisions for, whether it's T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T, whatever the provider is within a certain area, we cannot review based on that. And again, us choosing to identify that there's sufficient facilities within the area is again that effective prohibition. So we've talked about, ultimately what is our scope of review. Our scope is narrowed to those specific items that in this case, normally are housed within the zoning ordinance. In this case would refer to the Vistancia PCD, as Eric will talk about. And within that PCD, it has those specific regulations for things like height, placement, enclosure size, those elements that we can review based on and the requirement for a stealth design. So I wanted to cover those topics just so that we have kind of a refresher from the study session that we had talked about and covered, I want to say a couple months ago, prior to getting into the discussion for the specific wireless facility that we're here to talk about today. And with that, I will turn it over to Eric Cook to present the case.
Thank you, Mr. Gleason. Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. Thank you all for being here. I'm Eric Cook, planner with the Planning Department. This evening, I will be presenting case CU 2601. That is a conditional use permit for a stealth wireless communication facility. So taking a look at the application, our applicant is Declan Murphy of Coal Creek Consulting. The location is the Foothills Center Recreation Facility, indicated on that map there by the red square on the upper left corner. This is a 6.85 acre site that consists of the pool, playground, open space, and walking trail. So then the proposal is going to be for a 1,000 square foot area within that larger site for a stealth wireless communication facility, and it is concealed within a tower structure. So the existing use, we kind of covered that a little bit, recreation center. Looking around at the surrounding context of the site, we have to the north, single-family residential and the Central Arizona Plan Canal, and to the east, we have the Westland Park and single-family residential. South of the site, we have Lake Pleasant Elementary School, and west of the site, we have single-family residential as well as the CAP Canal. Taking a look at the proposed use, it is a 70-foot tall stealth wireless facility, as we mentioned. There on that image that you see, the site is indicated by that yellow star. The location will have an 8-foot masonry wall around the ground equipment. That'll be 8 feet tall. Access to the site is currently from Westland Road with that existing parking lot there you see in the image. Here we have the line drawings as well as the color renderings of the elevations for the tower. You can see here there is a neutral desert sort of color, earth tones, and it is designed to be as matching as possible with the existing architecture on site, including the type of block that is used as well as the paint colors. Here we have some photo simulation renderings that were provided by the applicant. On the left-hand side, you see the site as it currently is, and on the right-hand side, you will see a proposal of what the site will look like with the tower once it is constructed. This view is from the parking lot that you saw there on Westland Drive, looking to the east. Continuing on with some additional photo renderings, there's a context map there on the left. Again, the subject site is indicated by the yellow star. At the upper right-hand corner, you will see a red circle that is indicating the place from which the photo was taken in the northeast on Westland Road, looking to the southwest. You can see just there to the left of that curving road sign is the tower you see in the distance. This is another view looking from the southwest up to the northeast, again along the Westland Road. Location of the photo is indicated by the red circle. So while looking at the staff analysis, there are permissible review components we're able to consider, and that is the stealth design, the height, the setbacks, and the equipment enclosure. We are prohibited from reviewing the property values, health concerns, subjective design requirements, and determining signal need or non-need. Summary of our staff analysis. There's going to be a stealth design required due to the location and the Vistancia PCD. There is a height maximum prescribed by the Vistancia PCD, which is maximum of 80 feet. The site would allow for 80 feet here, and there's also going to be a distance from residential requirement. It is 110% of the total overall height of the tower, which, with the tower being 70 feet tall, the requirement would be a distance of 77 feet. As you can see here indicated by the green line, the site would be 206 feet away from the nearest residential property. The red outline there is essentially the size of the proposed site. There are restrictions for some enclosure sites related to cell towers, although there is no maximum size for the enclosure of ground equipment when it's for a conditional use permit. And so the size there is approximately 1,000 square feet. Continuous jurisdiction, this is related to all CUPs. If there is any valid or detrimental issues that arise, the CUP can be reconsidered by the city, and if this happens, it would be returned to the commission for hearing. Again, these detrimental issues would not include the previously mentioned topics, which are prohibited by federal law, including property values, health concerns, and public opinion on aesthetics or design. So the public outreach here we have, so the notice of application was sent out to a radius of 600 feet around the subject property and all HOAs within 1 mile of the subject property. There was a legal ad published in the newspaper in a timely fashion, and the site was posted per city requirements. The sign posting was placed there along Westland Road, so residents could view it from the south as well as the north while passing by. Within the public outreach, we had the applicant had an early pre-submittal neighborhood meeting on January 29th, 2026 with 29 attendees. This meeting was held in addition to the regular requirement because the applicant wished to hear the community concerns and as well as give them an early on notice that this project would be happening, as it is close to several residential developments. Additionally, there was the required neighborhood meeting held for the conditional use permit. That was held on April 6, 2026. There were 31 attendees. We did have some written submission of opposition as well as support. That number there has been slightly updated as we received some post the publication of the report. There were a total of 13 submissions of opposition and 5 in support that were submitted via writing. So the public comment topics represented in the summary of what was shared with both public meetings as well as the submitted written comments. So here we have the things that the people who were in opposition for the case cited, which included the proximity to the pool, the proximity to the playground and other homes, and proximity to the Lake Pleasant Elementary School. There were a couple people that had structural concerns relating to the fall zone of the tower structure and that their home may be within reach of that fall zone. And then there were vast majority was health concerns related to the RF emissions and how close it is to the homes. The other biggest one was the property values of the surrounding homes, concern of impact from this being placed there. People in support of the application, they cited that they needed additional cellular connectivity, that many of them were not able to get cell phone signal in their homes or anywhere around their home. And they gave many examples of how that was detrimental to their daily life as well as their personal run businesses. They also cited the need for great cellular connectivity in the area for emergency response and for more vulnerable members of the population, such as elderly who live alone or children who are home alone after school, needing to be able to reach their parent or other supporting family members at any time. And then last but not least, the lack of consistent connectivity throughout the neighborhood as well as specific home locations. Many people cited having to drive several blocks away from their home in order to use their cell phone. So our key findings here, the city has significantly narrow scope and purview of evaluating these wireless facilities due to the federal regulations that were previously stated. The proposal does meet the standards and applicable regulations for height and setback as they were prescribed by the Vistancia PCD. It complies with the requirement for the stealth or concealed design, having an 8-foot screening wall around all ground equipment, as well as all other equipment is completely concealed within the structural tower. So when this operation is conducted in accordance with the recommended conditions of approval, the use is not expected to have any significant impact on adjacent properties outside of the what we're allowed to evaluate. So of the items we're allowed to evaluate is in compliance with all of those components. Our staff recommendation would be for the commission to vote to approve conditional use permit 2601, subject to the conditions in Exhibit 1.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Commissioner Feider?
I have a couple of questions, thank you. Are you aware if obviously there's significant reports of lack of good quality coverage and consistent coverage out there. Is the applicant comfortable that this specific location satisfies those needs? And I have a couple follow-ups to that, so.
Chair and Commissioner, the applicant is basing his decision to put it on this location based on information provided from the cell coverage study from the cell provider. The information about siting is not at hand for us to access, but there was a study done by the cell provider as to where they would need that in order to basically extend the reach and get the ends of the existing cellular reach to connect to one another.
And also to that, I assume they considered other locations, or did the study direct them to this location?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Feider, I believe the applicant is here this evening. What I would recommend what we do is invite the applicant up to
Would love to
address those
visit.
questions.
Okay. I guess my questions are going to be directed now to the applicant, so if that's.
Welcome. Please state your name.
Good evening, Chair, members of the Commission. Declan Murphy is my name, representing TAG and Verizon. My address is 8283 North Hayden Road in Scottsdale. I would be happy to answer your questions. Obviously, if I could say firstly, I've been working on wireless sites for 25 years in Arizona, so quite a bit of experience. I've been before this body before and every other jurisdiction in the state. And so, you know, we had obviously 2 neighborhood meetings that we discussed the site and the concerns, and I'm not sure, I think they were productive, but, you know, that's about the extent of it, I guess, in terms of, you know, the outreach was, I think, worthwhile, and there are things that we share with the community that I hope, you know, can be helpful because, you know, essentially when it comes to the conversation about why this location versus other locations, you know, it's not just a matter of dropping a pin on a map because there's a lot of parameters that have to be taken into consideration. And of course, the big one is, if you're building a site like this, like any other site, you know, you need to have a long-term lease. And so getting, you know, a property owner or a landlord to commit to a 25, 30-year lease is not an easy task because, you know, there are concerns with encumbering the property, et cetera. But this site is quite unique because the community is the landlord and the lessor here. So I wasn't involved in that process in terms of negotiating the lease and all that with the community, but the community approved this location, so that's quite unique. I mean, it's not a commercial entity or a commercial property that wouldn't have a connection, that would have financial priorities. No, this is actually the community that's the lessor. the community gets the revenue, et cetera. And so that's quite unique. The second thing I will say is that there's already a stealth site within the community, so that would have gone through a similar process to what we're going through now, and that was deemed appropriate by City of Peoria, the community in the past, so there's precedent there. So that's an important fact. And also, from a practical standpoint, like I said, a lot of experience working with all the carriers here in the valley and throughout the state. They don't really take an approach where let's build it, they will come. Carriers are usually, and always 99% in my opinion, reacting to gaps in service, problems with the network, customers calling, data that they have. And this site is actually well above and beyond in terms of what we would normally build. This is a $500,000 plus site. So, as a practical matter, these carriers are for profit. They're all public companies. They don't spend $500,000 if they don't have to. That's just the reality. So there is a need here. It's also designed to accommodate all three carriers that operate in the market. So that's also positive because, most municipalities, they like to, if you're going to build a site nowadays, make sure that it serves not just one carrier and you kind of reduce the proliferation, et cetera. At least that's the idea. And then, it's understandable when we have applications like this that there's always concerns from an RF safety perspective, and we didn't. We did obviously talk about that more so than anything else, I think, at the last at the neighborhood meetings. And as far as that goes, it's very interesting to me because this type of energy, this RF is measurable. Anybody can measure it.
If I may, because I would like to stay on topic in terms of the question,
Sure.
were you directed to this site in particular based on the study?
Not this site in particular, because going back to my original, and just, when it comes to, each carrier has their own network, each carrier has their own footprint. So they'll issue what they call a ring, is a typical industry standard. They'll say, we have a problem within this area. And of course, nowadays, the usage and the data usage for the most part is more in the home than it is in any other, in any other location. So the challenges and the gaps in service are typically closer to residential, right? And nowadays, and of course it's been the case for the last 15, 20 years, the amount of data used is going one way. So each carrier is trying to keep up with their product is obviously in demand.
So if I could summarize, then what you're saying is that the gap was located in this area, and then
Yes.
you identified this property.
Correct.
Are
but
you satisfied with that, Commissioner Fider?
That was a long-winded
Yeah.
to get to you.
We have a
to
lot
get
of
to the end.
questions,
Thank you
so-
so
Sure.
much. Also, your agreement with the HOA is the owner of the real estate. I assume in your agreement, they're obviously approving of the location, and are they approving of the design as well? Is that part of your agreement with them?
Chair, yeah, Commissioner, yes, the design was a collaboration with the community. It's designed to mimic the adjacent pool house, all of the architectural features and colors and all that. And so the important thing I will note, this type of site, unlike other types of sites, will not be really distinguishable as a wireless site, and that's an important point to make as well. So yes, to answer your question, I'll keep my...
Was that collaboration with the homeowners in the neighborhood or just the HOA board that approved the?
With the HOA, because from what I understand, I wasn't involved, but from what I understand, obviously there was a design put forward, and this was the collaboration, and this is the end result. That's typical for these, because this is quite a typical process for.
That's fine. Last question. How many different cell providers can this tower accommodate?
On paper, it could accommodate 3, which is what operates in this market right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I
Thank you.
have. Thank you.
Commissioner Waitman Powell.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll make it brief because I know we also have public comment and we want to get to that. First of all, thank you. Thank you for elaborating. I more so have a comment than anything. I'm happy to hear that there was some form of collaboration with, HOA, some type of community or a representation of the community to get this built. What I'm understanding is that this is a need, and so I just want to, kind of be the devil's advocate here, because I understand both concerns, because we are going to hear concerns from residents as well. But I do understand that our city is growing. And so when we're talking about a growing city and we're talking about accessibility, right? We're talking about cell service. This is now a safety thing, right? When there is something happening, when something goes wrong, you grab your cell phone. Whoever you're calling, mom, dad, 911, if it's bad enough, you might want to do 911 first, but you're grabbing your cell phone when there is something going on. And so I see this as a public safety thing too. We need to start accommodating, and I like the fact that you're talking about being proactive, reactive, but reactive more so to the growth. And so I do want to attain as someone that understands that our city is growing, that we need to work on those things. If not, we do get those ugly concerns that you can make a call. It gets frustrating being in Peoria, and it feels like, you're somewhere else on the countryside and you can't get service. You don't want to have that. And so I do understand that there is a need, and I do understand that you all are trying to accommodate that, and I'm thankful for that as we kind of move forward, talking about what this looks like, as we will have residents having comments as well. So thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Secretary Cottrell.
Thank you. I feel it's my job to go a little technical, so pardon my question here. Mr. Cook in his staff presentation indicated the 8-foot wall around all of the equipment. And I, of course, see on your site plan, you do have an SES on the outside of that. I've seen those outside, I've seen those inside. Is that something you would consider either painting or screening or putting inside of that 8-foot wall so you don't have this SES sitting on the outside?
Chair, Commissioner, I can check, but as far as I'm aware, typically, and I think this is APS, they won't allow us to be inside the compound.
That's what I was thinking you might say, but if you could paint it or screen it.
Absolutely, yes.
And maybe if we could stipulate something to those effects to do all things possible to improve the aesthetics, because I know the aesthetics on the tower, as Mr. Gleason stated, we are limited in our ability, but we would still like to make it match as much as possible and be as appealing as possible.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
Thank you, Secretary Cottrell. I have some questions. Can you go to a couple slides back? Go slow. It's the image, the simulated image. Okay, so here's what I want to show. If you go back one more to where you were. Okay, it looks very yellow in that picture. And now go forward. It still looks a different color, but go again. Okay, this does not look yellow to me. And then further, it doesn't look like the brickwork on the bottom is represented on the next one. So go forward again. Another slide. The other way, sorry. No, there we go. I'm not seeing that design in the render. And I just want to be clear on which one is being built, presented.
Sure, Chair. The photo simulation is difficult to actually fully replicate, but on the drawings, you'll see that there's a table of colors and materials. So everything will match the pool house. So at the end of the day, that's the goal here, is to adhere to the colors that the community have approved and are already there. And the end result will be a lot better than the simulation, I think.
But will be like this. I just want for the record that we're not doing the photo simulation because honestly, that does not look nice at all.
I agree.
And aesthetics is one of the things we can comment on. I think this is, well enough, but I'd like to see that same effort applied. If you could now go back several slides to the red square on the actual site. One more. again. There. So my question is, so you've selected this parcel or this property. How do you decide the placement on the parcel?
Chair, that's usually driven by the property owner, actually, in most cases, which I assume is the case here. I think at one point there was a discussion of putting it further towards the rear of the property, and I don't understand, or I don't recall what the reason, but I think this is a good location in the sense that it's closer to the structure that's on the property. And so aesthetically, I think it'll work better if it's closer to the actual pool house. And, but this was really driven by, well, first of all, we have to comply with the ordinance setbacks. We're trying to keep it as far away.
Well, and I do want to say, I appreciate that you're not going to the maximum of height, and the proposed setback is great. For question for staff, is this something you look at as where is the best placement on the actual parcel? Because I agree, I tend to think, well, let's push it back so the residents don't feel it as much.
Chair, one of the items that we can evaluate is setbacks. And when we're looking at that, we're evaluating, does it meet the setbacks or not?
It does.
We can certainly encourage, placement, but we wouldn't be able to require beyond the setbacks. And just to step back to address Commissioner Cottrell's concern with regard to the service panel coloring, we can certainly add that as a stipulation if it's made a part of the recommendation, so that, and we can phrase it such that the service panel be painted to match the screen wall.
Thank you to both of you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? Okay.
Chair, I guess I'll have a chance to speak after the neighbors.
Absolutely. Did he fill out a card? I don't know that you need to.
Okay,
When I open it up to public, we'll have you come up. Thank you.
thank you.
Seeing no further comments, I will now open the hearing up for public hearing. I have a list of speakers. Thank you for participating. When you come up, please state your name, and a friendly reminder, we do have a 3-minute time limit for all speakers. Okay, Cheryl Remington. Hi, Cheryl.
I hope you'll listen to me. Comes from the heart. My name is Cheryl Remington. The proposed cell tower will be directly visible from my backyard through view fencing, which is one of the key features that defined my backyard through its value when I purchased it. Data shows that homes near towers can lose approximately 8% of their value in a strong market and more in a declining market. That creates a clear, measurable, and financial impact on homeowners within at least a quarter-mile radius. We have a cell phone tower located at the clubhouse. However, that structure existed as a lookout tower when homes were being built and was part of the design. That is very different from introducing a new 70-foot smokehouse tower next to 1- and 2-story homes and into the backyards of existing homeowners who had no expectation of this type of development. Looking at community input, the VVA online vote passed by only 86 votes, 558 in favor, 472 against, with thousands of residents not participating. However, when we directly surveyed the most impacted neighborhood, opposition was significantly higher. Among those surveyed, 63% of surveyed homes opposed in Alta Vista, with 79% opposing in Westland Heights, and 100% of those surveyed with premium view fencing lots on Copperleaf Lane opposed it. These are residents most affected and were not considered at all in the decision to locate it at the Foothills Pool. There are also unresolved concerns about noise. The site is next to a wash that carries sound, yet no mitigation plan has been provided. And while one carrier may be quiet, additional carriers could increase noise with no recourse once the tower's built. No alternative locations were ever considered, and the decision process itself was inconsistent, with the issue being dropped due to opposition and then reintroduced 7 months later after homeowners believed the board had dropped the idea of locating it at the pool. This proposal concentrates financial risk on nearby homeowners. I respectfully ask that you deny the conditional use permit based on property devaluations, significant neighborhood opposition, and unresolved noise concern. Thank you for your consideration, and I just ask if any of you would want that in your backyard. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Mike McHorse.
Christie, I'm gonna, on page 7 to 11, if you could show those. I was understand that, I was told that you could actually show some of my slides. Yeah,
Do we have a copy of a presentation?
yeah, I gave them. I was told they could, I was told I couldn't email them, so I brought them. Excuse me.
Do we want to move to another resident while we get this prepared?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's a great idea. We'll do that.
Okay.
Mr. McHorse, thank you for your patience. Again, we just remodeled and we have a whole new system. We're trying to create efficiencies. Steve Smith. Welcome, Steve. Please state your name.
My name is Steve Smith. I live very close to the site. Could Mr. Cook please put up that map again that shows the distance from a residential?
Well, she has,
Madam Chair, we have that slide up, but while speakers are presenting, the clock is running on this image.
so you can't take the clock image off?
It's it. Well, yeah, it's important, I think, for my presentation to see that slide if you could.
We have that slide in our printouts.
We do have the
Okay,
slide in
you
our
have it.
packet. but-
Okay. Thank you for the time. I understand that you can't talk about RF. You can't talk about property values. Fortunately, that wasn't part of my presentation tonight to you. What I want to talk about that it hasn't been discussed is a fall zone, and that's why that photo was very important. You notice that there was a 200 feet between where it's sitting and where the properties are. What you didn't notice is that it's a 70-foot tower that requires a fall zone, which is a 70-foot radius. If you'll notice, there's a parking lot right in front of where that's going to be placed. On Saturday mornings, there's children out there. There's a swim team, and they meet for 2 hours. If that tower falls during that period, it's going to hit that parking structure. There's parent-teacher meetings out there periodically. They park in that lot. We walk along that trail in the mornings. There's also, on the other side, the pool. This is within that 70-foot radius. And we're told that, well, these things don't fall. Well, there's one that fell in Las Vegas just recently. It fell over a road, and it came close to a retail store. So my recommendation to the city, from a liability standpoint, there's 2 other locations that, one is within 500 feet of this property. These locations are owned by the city. They're both water facilities. I sent a letter to Mr. Cook detailing both of these. One is Desert Oasis, and the other one is 500 feet up. It's 121st and Westland. It's right at the corner of Estancia and Westland, 500 feet from this one. There's a water tower there. There's plenty of places there for the fall zone. There's no potential for danger to pedestrians or children. It's a long way from the school. I did a chart that I also sent The distance from the home on that location is 500 to 700, not 200. The Desert Oasis, it would be 700 to 1,200 feet from homes, not the 200 that's shown on the one Mr. Cook showed. The visual impact is very low on both of those locations. The litigation exposure for the city is very low on both of those locations as opposed to this one. So my recommendation, I'm not against RAF. There's pros and cons on property value as to whether or not it will affect it. But what I'm asking that we've never seen, and we're told by the applicant that you don't just take a dot and put it on a map. But we've never seen any proof that there's been any studies other than on this location. We would like to see the city stop this process until that study can be properly done and at least look at these other two locations. Again, it's 121st in Westland, and it's the Desert Oasis Water Facilities, both facilities the city owns. Those would be much better locations than this one for that cell tower. And we know that you don't have to be right to be sued. You just have to have a litigant. And if that should happen, I would think that the city would want a due diligence package and a study done to prove that you did everything that you possibly could and you at least reduced your liability here. We know what the objective is for the applicant, it's profit. We know what the objective is for the carriers, it's profit. We may get $3 a month reduced on our HOA fees, it's not sufficient. And I believe that only a survey was done by the HOA before this went forward. There was no vote from, we got a survey saying, if there was a cell tower proposed, would you like one? And that was the survey that I see that was done by the HOA. So again, I'm asking the city, from the city standpoint, do your due diligence, have a packet. If at some point there is litigation, you'll be protected. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Waitman Powell, do you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the gentleman that just spoke. I just had a quick point of clarification. How much further was it? I think you said something about 500 feet from what,
Yes.
the PIC location?
Yeah, 120, and this location is just 500 feet from this proposed site.
Okay.
It's right up the street.
That was my only-
And there's a water tower there that the city owns. It's 121st and Westland. That
Okay.
seems like a much better location for this than where there's a park, there's a community pool, from 2:45 to 3:15 every day, people park along Westland to
Thank
pick up
you,
their
sir.
children.
Yes, no, thank you, sir. No,
Yeah.
thank you. And I definitely heard that. I'm a mother myself, and so I understand some of those concerns. I think that was part of kind of like the safety and health concerns that came. And so kind of addressing the fall zone and making sure that, you know, we are looking into that. Thank you. Thank you, sir. I did have a question. And I think I already know the answer for this as a commissioner, but just for general education. Let's say hypothetically, we were to say, hey, we want to look into some other locations. Would that require all new, well, it would require all new permitting, but it would require us to stop this completely. It would not be postponing a process or having a continuation, correct? I just kind of want to know what the process would be on our end.
Chair, Commissioner Waitman Powell, so in order to tell the applicant to look at another site, we don't have a cause to require that.
Okay.
We have to evaluate the application in front of us. We would effectively be prohibiting the wireless facility at this location if we were to simply say, we choose this site instead.
Okay, and I understand that, and I just want to ask that because I understand there's things that are out of our scope, but I want to make sure that this is a fair thing. We're going back and forth, we're looking at options. We are asking questions that maybe some people in the audience have as well, but what I'm understanding is like there is a need, and I want to address that. As a commissioner, I know there is a need, me, myself, and I think that that is a safety concern as well. We need to have connectivity for a growing city, but I also want to hear some of those things. And when I hear something like 500 feet, I'm like, well, that's not that far. Would it solve the issues? Would it kind of maybe not block the view for maybe the lady that spoke? You know, it's a hard process because there's so much work that went into it. And I understand that those 3 providers, you know, there is a lot on the line here. So I just want to go back and forth, but that kind of answered my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Susan Smith. Are you ready? Okay, Mike McCourse, please. Thank you. And thank you, staff, for accommodating.
Christy, can you go back 2 slides to alternative site 1? And then I'll touch on that as we go. Perfect, thank you. Oh, gee, my time's going, I'm sorry. Yeah, Mike McCourse, resident of Estancia. My property actually backs up to Foothills Recreation Center. I actually did a complete analysis that I'm happy to pass. I brought some extra copies. But the reality is there was no study ever done. I asked for public documents. Mr. Cook gave me what was available publicly, and the only thing that was available was a letter from TAG Verizon to the HOA selecting Foothills Recreation Center as the ideal site. Mr. Declan, we asked him in our meeting what sites were looked at, and he basically said that wasn't open to public consumption. So if this cell coverage study from TAG Verizon was done, it was never given to the public, and we've never seen it. So I did my own research. I looked at 5 different locations. We'll start with alternative site 1. And I think this was already talked about. There's basically on the corner of Estancia and Westland, not even a half mile from or quarter mile from the property that's being proposed. City of Peoria and Estancia Maintenance Corp owns a lot there. There would be no issue with any of the things we're talking about tonight to have that cell tower located there. If you could go to the next alternative site 2. And I'm sorry, this should have been digital. There's a lot right on the corner of Estancia Boulevard and Lone Mountain that just has a community little grass lot right there. Wouldn't impact anybody to have it there. That's again only a quarter mile from that. Site 3, please. This is the one that was discussed earlier on Westland, the water tower lot that's owned by, I believe, the City of Peoria. Would be an ideal location for this. Again, it'd be great if we could see these concentric circles that Mr. Delkin talked about, or Mr. Delkin Murphy talked about, but we've never seen it. So, and then site 4, please. Here we go. So Estancia has already taken the hit for having a tower in our HOA. Why are we going to support North Point that's not even being considered for a tower? So that would take care of everything that everybody's asking for. I'm not saying that's the ideal site. I think I've got more, but that would be as well. And then finally, site 5. If I could just show the last one, please.
It's okay, please go to his last slide.
We're building a new firehouse owned by the City of Peoria, I believe. And I don't see any reason why we couldn't put a cell tower on the firehouse site. So I'd love to hear why that wouldn't be appropriate. But thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. McCourse.
Any questions for me? And would anybody like some of these copies?
I think can you leave a copy with, thank you.
I'll leave all of them.
Susan Smith.
Good evening, Susan Smith. Thank you, Planning and Zoning, for having me here this evening. There's many things that I won't be discussing because I heard they're not allowed, so I'm going to jump right into it. My home was actually on the picture. I'm 258 feet from that lovely thing we're going to erect. I want to talk about safety hazards, structural failure, falling debris, and fire risks, which are within the fall zone. We are told not to worry about it, that it doesn't really happen. I did leave a packet with this young lady here from Environmental Health Trust. It lists all, within the US, all the documented cases of tower falls, fires and collapses and what they've done to the neighborhoods that surround them. So I'm going to move on from that on to inadequate investigation of alternatives. You've already heard from the other folks. I don't need to beat that drum. But I haven't seen any evidence that there was any investigation for something that was less intrusive in our backyard. I won't talk about visual blight, although I do have a second-story home. So when I look out, I will be looking again at that lovely aesthetic things. I will no longer see the mountain. I will be seeing that. Moving right along, this is not probably your issue, but I want you to know where all the frustration is coming from, is really the voter suppression, our HOA due diligence, okay? We have CC&Rs, section 12.4, indicates that whenever there is a change use of land, that there needs to be a majority vote. It needs to be done in a formal protocol, a meeting. Absentee ballots are okay. That did not occur. So when you look at the people who are frustrated, you know, and we're looking to you, we realize this isn't your problem, but we feel like our votes didn't count, that we didn't get an opportunity to see what was best for our neighborhood. We bought into a dream. We have $1 million homes. And now I'm going to be looking at a 70-foot tower out my back window, off my master bedroom. So I won't go over all of the other things. They are on my list. And if you care to look at those, along with the documented cases that it does in fact happen. We do get fires. We do have children that get hurt. We do have homes, and as you saw on that beautiful, how would you say, that analysis that you did, it was stretched out. I'm telling you that 200 feet is awfully short when you're standing in your back bedroom and you're looking out. And you see the playground, which I couldn't even really see on here. The playground, if any of you folks, and again, just take a drive over to that area, get out of your car, and just look to see how close the children's playground is to that tower, the pool, and then right across the street, of course, we have the grade school. So I am emotional. I'm invested. But you know what? I want a cell tower. The only thing I'm opposed to is the location and how this came about. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. Rick Eckenrod. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Rick Eckenrode. I also live in Estancia Village A. It is a master plan community of 3,660 homes. Yes, we are already serviced by a similar cell phone facility at our Mountain Vista Club location at 29701 North Sunrise Point. That brick and mortar cell tower is a larger version of what is proposed at the Foothills Pool. That existing tower, which by the way was implemented in 2012 and is now considered overloaded and overtaxed with its ability to service the 3,660 homes. There's also a community pool very close to the existing cell tower, and the Foothills Pool is also near Estancia Elementary School. The distances between the two are somewhat similar to what the Foothills Pool was, and I'm sorry, it's the Mountain Vista Club that's the current cell tower. I'm also a board member. I was also on the committee that picked that. If you have other questions for me, I'll do my best. My memory's kind of fuzzy since this started 6 years ago. Anyway, the proposed tower, as I said, is a smaller version of the existing tower. As a resident of the far northwest Estancia Village A area, I unfortunately must endure the same undependable cell phone coverage other residents in the area must endure. As a frequent walker, some of my areas I pass through have no cell phone coverage. Luckily, me and friends have not experienced some sort of medical emergency in those areas that receive no cell phone coverage, and we would have no ability to contact emergency services. Cell phone enhancement devices may help inside of homes, but have no effect outside of homes. Recently, I was invited to that groundbreaking we had at the aforementioned Fire Medical Station 198. There were many, in addition to law enforcement officers, there were City of Peoria officials there, as well as contractor representatives. As that event proceeded, I was taken aback how many people were standing around trying to get cell phone coverage in that area. Although that event only lasted a few hours, imagine nearby residents experiencing no cell phone coverage every day, all day. This area, the North Peoria area, has grown immensely as our needs have. Services that residents depend on each and every day must grow along with that immense growth. Please approve the proposed Foothills Cell Tower. Thank you for my opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Can I ask you a question? As a board member on the HOA, can you share some history on how you chose exactly that spot on that parcel?
So, the initial selection process went through what we call our Landscape and Enhancement Committee. So it's a committee of residents that are, as I call them, they're hyper, they want to participate in the process. Sometime after 2012, I want to guess it was 2018, 2019, I'm sorry for the fuzziness, it's been years ago. The need for an additional cell phone tower came about. Andrew Messing with TAG approached us about, hey, would you be interested in having a cell phone tower on community property? So the committee was tasked with finding the appropriate place for it. Such things as how large the area was, how close homes, that sort of thing were. Plus, we do have a lot of open space that's like a flood containment area. I don't think you'd want to put a cell phone tower with equipment in a flood area. After doing all that, it came down to the Foothills Pool, which is owned by the HOA. None of these other areas that we've heard tonight, we own. We can't tell City of Peoria to put a telephone tower on your...
No, I understand that. Thank you. I wanted just to understand if there was a committee. Thank
so
you.
there was a committee and the selection was made for that site.
Thank you for your time.
Sure.
Paul Berkeley. Welcome, Mr. Berkeley.
Paul Barkley, like Charles Barkley?
Barkley, okay. My apologies.
It's okay. It's okay.
No relation?
No relation. I also am a board member, and I was also on the committee that Rick spoke about. So I am just here to say that we get numerous complaints as board members about the lack of service, and what are you doing about it? It's all over the Facebook social pages as well. And while you do have some opposition to there's a lot of people that are desperate and actually have listed the number of 911 calls that were dropped on social media. So I would tell you that it's a pretty important feature, even though a lot of people aren't here tonight, but as typical people that want something versus opposing it, sometimes you don't always get all those people showing up. So thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time. Norm Olson.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Norm Olson. I'm going to talk about something a little different. I'm a little not clear about how this process I understand that a CUP is required with certain conditions and certain requirements for this, and I understand the FCC, limiting what you guys can do. But this, to me, is more of a plat issue, a plat amendment. There's an important amenity that runs through the entire community. And at the end, at each end, there's terminus that are very important. At one end is a waterfall and nice feature as you come in. At the other end is what is said to be a landmark feature that is a sundial monument serving as a key terminus point for the Discovery Trail, used for biking and walking, used for educational purposes. So in the review, in the staff report I just reviewed, it said that it was analyzed for compatibility. The cell tower is analyzed for compatibility. Well, the 70-foot cell tower will impact that sundial. So the sundial is a key feature amenity. Now, the HOA does not have the right to destroy an important amenity. They don't have that ability. It's owned by the community. Now, it might seem like a petty little thing, but a sundial exists at a top of a hill. And if there's anything around it that's taller, it doesn't work. So when you put that tower right there, there's going to be certain mornings where the sundial will not function. So the problem is the process. The applicant failed to identify this incompatibility, and they failed to provide notice of this. I guess I have other things, but that's enough.
And 28 seconds is a long time. Are you sure, sir? All right, Barry Gordon.
Good evening. My name is Barry Gordon. I am a resident. I live less than a mile from the proposed tower, about 2 miles from the existing tower. Cell service inside my house is unreliable, typically unable to connect. Whenever I can connect a call, it's regularly dropped. I'm forced to redirect all my phone communication to route through the wired internet service in my house. Outside of my house is a cell signal dead zone. If, for example, a fire were to break out of my house, forcing me out into the street, disabling my internet service, I would have to walk hundreds of feet away at minimum before I could reliably call 911. This existing tower has a significantly higher density of homes within the operational area as compared to the proposed tower. I've attended at least a dozen community meetings that include this topic over the past 6 years. I have not heard anyone identify or even suggest a trend of illness due to exposure to the non-ionizing cellular signals emanating from the existing tower. The proposed design was discussed at multiple HOA board meetings over the years, giving the residents ample opportunity to provide input to the board. I am very pleased with the design and the efforts made to have the tower blend in with the surrounding architecture, including the council members tonight talking about it. Just for reference, in discussions that have come up, the new fire station that's being proposed or is being built would be 2 miles north of my house at a similar elevation with 2 mountains directly in the path. As such, it would not provide any service coverage for the existing coverage gap that this proposed cell tower is going to provide. Similarly, as far as the sundial is concerned, the sundial is 500 feet away from the proposed cell tower site. So with the exception perhaps of the earliest of morning hours when the sun is in the east, there will not be any shadows cast upon the sundial. It will not affect its operation whatsoever. So I am fully in support of this project at this location and highly recommend that you approve the application.
Thank you. And with that, we have no more public comments. I now close the public hearing. Commissioners? Oh, I'm sorry. Would the applicant like to share 3 minutes as well, please?
Thank you, Chair, members of the Commission. I was taking a few notes there as people were speaking. I guess, for 3 minutes, I'm not sure I can cover everything, but I'm happy to do so. The safety aspect of this site, of course, that's the one that I highlighted, and of course, that's very important given the location. And just to give you a quick background, so City of Peoria runs 2018 IBC, International Building Code, so we would design the site to that code. Now, that code would be applicable to a site, whether it's in Arizona or somewhere in the north. And in the north, this site would have to be considered to carry ice loading, snow loading, a hell of a lot more structural stresses than it would be here. So these sites are over-designed, and particularly a site like this, where the equipment is all concealed within the structure, it's probably the safest site you could actually build. I've been in this business 25 years. I'm not aware of any site ever falling over. Certainly, you could have sites in remote areas that could be old, rusted out, but I've never seen that happen in my experience. So, the question or the concern was brought up, public safety. Well, public safety is obviously at everybody has a priority for public safety. 80% of wireless calls or of 911 calls come from wireless devices, right? So we know there's a gap in service here. We know that AT&T has a gap in service here. T-Mobile has a gap in service here, and you don't have to be an RF expert to know that, because all you have to do is look at the rooftops from an aerial, and you look at all those consumers that are in this area. So if you're talking about safety and you're talking about kids, being able to dial 911 is, everybody would agree, that's a priority, right? And so, like I said earlier, this is not a case of build it, they will come. This is carriers reacting to problems in the area. So that's really why we're here. And, you know, to add to that, this is about it as an ideal, an application that will come before you for a wireless site. In terms of location, aesthetics, precedent, there's already a site in the community. I've had sites here before, this commission before, in the past, would not be as ideal as this. Property values, of course, that's a concern. I'll give you a quick anecdote, is that we get approached by all sorts of builders nowadays. In fact, I'm working on a site in Pinal County that the builder asked us to put a site 60 foot from homes that weren't even marketed yet. That's how important they saw cell service to selling homes. They asked us to put a site 60 foot from homes that they were building, that they were going to sell. I'm a real estate broker in Arizona for 15, 20 years almost. I understand property values. You will not do comps to show, and I can guarantee you, you will not do comps to show this site will affect property values, because it's just not possible. Because priority is people want cell phone service, and that's the reality.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Any other question? Thank you for your time. Sorry, the public hearing is closed. Thank you. Commissioners, any other questions or comments? Oh, Commissioner Feider?
All right, thank you. I will be honest, I recognize a strong need for this service here in Vistancia. I know people drop a lot of calls. I know it's needed. I would like to compliment Mr. Smith on your presentation to the city with alternative locations. While I may not agree with potential alternative locations, being adjacent to city water infrastructure, I have to believe that there are a spattering of other locations that could be available for this type of a use. We're no strangers to controversial cases. The vast majority of the controversial cases are commercial lots, vacant lots, that people that are moving into the neighborhood see as vacant, and the uses are still unknown at this time. This is very different. These homeowners bought homes with view fencing next to a premier community amenity. I just don't see this as an appropriate land use at that location. With that said, I know we need this, but I empathize with the homeowners that back to this thing, because they did not buy next to a vacant lot with unknown uses. They bought next to a community amenity. And I just think it's inappropriate at this location. I would strongly recommend to the applicant that there's a lot of vacant land out there. There's a lot of opportunities to look for alternative sites. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Feider. Commissioner Waitman-Paul?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And, you know, I want to thank my fellow Commissioner Feider for just some of his comments. I really respect his background, being, you know, understanding real estate and understanding like location and things mattering. But I think for me, some of the comments that kind of stuck with me was really the closeness of the nearby playground that really looked very close. Also, hearing about some of those safety issues and even getting suggested locations such as, you know, working with the city, you know, being closer to maybe help and resources such as the firefighters or first responders, that if something was to happen, they could step in a bit quicker or, you know, have more expertise with having something closer like that. And not saying that that is the location. There were a lot of locations, but I think this is a bit controversial. And I'll be very honest with you all. I would have because understanding that there's only certain things that are within our control, I would have hands down just voted and said, yes, we need it because we need to be able to dial 911. Our city is growing. I've been a huge advocate about us addressing things before they become issues. And right now we're already reactive. But I think that because there are other options, possible other options that we might have to bring it back to the city if these are viable options, it's just hard for me to say yes. And for sure, because my point of clarification was 500 feet. Like that is just so small. It's not like they're saying, put it on the other side of the city. That's some things we hear, like we hear, not on our side of the city. And this is not that case. They're saying, yes, it's okay, 500 feet. And then there's things that I want the public to understand that we cannot do. Some issues with the HOA. I definitely believe there should not be voter suppression of any form. You should be able to go through a proper process and have say what's happening. You're part of an HOA so that you can be part of that process, and all of it should be able to be part of that that process. And so for me, it's just very hard. I'm kind of looking at my some of my more senior commissioners here, kind of figuring out how we. Commissioner Fry is going to say something, but I'm looking at some people that may.
More senior?
No, listen, with all due respect, Commissioner Fider, look up to you as a mentor, but some commissioners that may have had similar cases and have did this just a little bit longer. I've been here for a long time too, 3 terms, over 6 years, but I think this is really, these concerns are valid, y'all, and it would have been different. 500 feet is not that much. I just hate that we might have to send someone back to go through this process. I know this process takes a long time, and so I'm in the middle right now, a little bit indifferent seeing both, and so I'm just going to hand it over. There's a few more commissioners that want to speak, but for me, it'll be kind of in the moment. I have to weigh these 2 things. It's a hard one for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner. Secretary Cottrell.
Thank you, Chair. I might have a slightly different view. While I'm obviously not involved with this one, I'm an engineer, and our company has done many towers just like this. I've looked at the plans, I've looked at structural footings and caissons, and code-wise, these things are reliable, structurally. Now I'm not saying that there's not issues, that things haven't fallen over, and that's not a good thing, obviously, but going through the process, building it to code, the redundancies are ridiculous, and I kind of take that as those structural risks. If it's here at this park, it's next to a pool, it's next to a parking lot, those same risks would apply at your current pool, what the current tower is, or at another location they would apply. In this case, and I know Mr. Murphy probably he hasn't shared the siting analysis. Whether he can or not, I'm not sure, but we've seen those come in from the Verizons and the T-Mobiles and the AT&Ts. We've done some of those where we had surveyors on site looking at elevations of this ground and that mountain over there and that other tower where they're trying to connect microwave signals back and forth. Verizon, this is Verizon, they're not going to spend all this money without knowing that it's going to work. So this location has to work. They've done the study to show that it does work. They obviously talked with the HOA, which I think you do have a valid concern or legitimacy to go back. If your HOA didn't do it right and didn't let you vote, that's something we can't really address here. But the owner of this property is the HOA, and the owner went through the process to say, we approve this location. Verizon came in and said, here, we made all these deals, here's this spot. And while I do sympathize, I think even if we looked at some of those other locations which make sense, and I see that they could be better, we would be having the same conversation in a couple months, and some other group of neighbors would be coming up and saying the exact same thing because it's next to them. The one location you showed was right behind some other houses that are being built. So I know you might not want me to say that, but I think as I go through and I hear staff's restrictions to say what we are legally allowed to consider, I don't think we have the ability at this point to say anything but, I would be voting yes on this. So not wholeheartedly, I would love to say no, and yeah, I know you're sitting here, but I think it has to be a yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Cottrell. I'll share a couple thoughts as well. I would highly recommend you going back to the HOA. This has really put you in this situation. I as well am torn because the property owner, which is the HOA, is saying they want this and they want this there. And we have our hands tied in terms of the things that we can dictate or recommend. I am not a fan of the location in general, but I'm more concerned with the location on the parcel. Like, I feel like there's a lot more area, perhaps. The solution here is working with the HOA on a different spot, because we are limited in terms of how we feel about it. I also am concerned that perhaps other locations were not properly vetted. We did ask the applicant, and there was not a clear answer there, and that is discouraging. But again, your HOA approved this, so it's a difficult situation. Commissioner Fider, do you have another comment? Are you sure? Any other questions or comments? Okay, if there are no further comments or questions, can I get a motion on item 4R?
Madam Chair, I would like to make a motion to deny conditional use permit, PHO Vistancia Wireless Facility, 31642 North Westland Road, CU 26-01.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'm gonna second.
Okay. Commissioner Fider made a motion to deny item 4R. It was seconded by Commissioner Waitman Powell. Commissioners, please vote.
Point of clarification, Madam Chair. We are voting on the denial to be moved, so that would be, if we're in opposition, obviously a yes, correct? Just because language, because we're voting for a denial, correct?
The motion was to deny, so if you want.
Thank you, thank you. I got it, thank you so
If
much.
you want to
Commissioner.
vote against your motion.
Yes, we're just confusion on language. Thank you, Commissioner Fider, appreciate it.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, if I could also make an additional clarification. If
Sure.
the motion happens to be a split vote, the motion does not carry.
Correct.
So a yes vote is to deny.
Commissioners, please vote.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you, commissioners.
Could I make a quick question?
Absolutely.
Staff?
Secretary Cottrell?
With that motion passing, could you kind of outline what the next steps for the applicant might be?
Chair, Commissioner Cottrell, that is entirely up to the applicant as far as what path they would look to pursue as a result of the vote that we have tonight.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission too, if I will. So whenever there's a decision by the Planning and Zoning Commission, there is an appeal period. So the applicant does have the ability to appeal the case based on valid criteria to the city council. So that is an option too.
And that appeal would go straight to city council,
Correct. If it's deemed a valid appeal, that's right, based on the things that we can consider.
I would just like to encourage the applicant to revisit other options with the HOA management as well as with the city or any other private developers that are out there.
And I would encourage the citizens to get involved on your HOA board.
Get engaged, be
Your
part of
vote
the process.
matters. Okay. Clerk, do we have any cards for calls to the public? No? Wonder, seeing no requests to speak on non-agenda items, we are moving to reports from staff. Staff, please present.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, our May 21st meeting is canceled, so we do wish you a happy Memorial Day. Please be safe. We would like to see you back on June 4th for business. We also have a meeting on June 18th as well. It will be a busy summer. Please notice for July 2nd, that meeting has been already canceled and off the books. So again, next meeting is June 4th. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that all?
Got a quick commissioner report.
No commissioner reports.
I do,
Seeing no further business, there are no more commissioner reports.
I just wanted to thank our municipal clerks. It's Municipal Clerks Week. They do an amazing job for the city, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for that, Member Waitman Powell. All right, seeing no further business, I call this meeting adjourned. The time is now 7:35.